Unfortunately, we continue on here on Intentional Talk with some sad news, not only in the baseball world, but the entire sports world, if you will. We lost Dick Enberg last night at the age of 82. He suffered a heart attack at his home in Southern California. You talk about one of the legends in sports broadcasting. He is a baseball Hall of Famer. He is a pro football Hall of Fame announcer. He is in the basketball Hall of Fame. And Danny, for anybody that's our age, so we're talking about mid-40s to mid-50s, when you grew up and you turned on your television to watch sports, like 7 times out of 10, you're tuning in to see Dick Enberg.
If it was a big game, that was the voice, and it was Wimbledon, it was the NBA, and I go back, and I tell you what, my greatest memories, and maybe I'm dating myself, but I think of the combination with he and Billy Packer and Al McGuire. I thought Dick Enberg and Al McGuire those days, the UCLA, the Notre Dame games, the Marquette games, like the Saturday NBC college basketball game. When you think of Dick Enberg and Al McGuire and Billy Packer, and think of Merlin Olsen on football on Sunday, anything that was big, you attached his name to it.
I just want to tell you this. So in the offseason, our show is only 30 minutes, right? And our research department does an amazing job. So today, Mike McCurry's on it. And we have about 6 full pages of research here, which is a lot for an offseason show. 3.5 have to do with Dick Enberg. And we're talking about, like, running down everything that he did. You're talking about NFL on NBC, the Rose Bowls, the Breeder Cups, the PGA Tour on NBC. I even forgot that part, that he hosted that sort of stuff. Like, when I was a kid and I knew that I wasn't a good athlete, like the first time I ever threw a baseball, but I knew I wanted to be involved in sports somehow, I paid attention to guys like Dick Enberg to see how they did things. And it actually, listen, I was really sad last night when I found out that he passed away. But then I went back and I watched, like, the Browns-Broncos playoffs game, like from January of 1987, the drive game, which I was at that day. And even though it crushed me in the end to have John Elway march up and down the field, that's like one of the shining lights of my childhood. So I went back and I rewatched some of the game this morning just to listen to some of his calls and watch the 48-yard touchdown pass to Brian Brennan that put us up with 5 minutes to go and all that sort of stuff. And I guarantee you there are millions of sports fans our age, Dan, that are feeling the same exact way, that the loss of Dick Enberg takes us back to this special and a happy time in our childhood.
Chris, I did the same thing last night. When I heard the news, I immediately got on my iPad and I Googled, and I wanted to listen to some of the Al McGuire, Billy Packer, Dick Enberg college basketball games, and I listened to it, and it made you feel like a teenager again. Like, man, has it really been that long since these three were together? And just to see Billy Packer, Al McGuire, and Dick Enberg standing at midcourt before a game, it just kind of gave you goosebumps. Like, wow, at Pauley Pavilion, on a Saturday afternoon, UCLA and Notre Dame. You know what I mean? It was must-see TV if you were into sports.
Right. And listen, with the advent of sports television and networks like the one that we're working on now on MLB Network, we didn't grow up with that sort of stuff. And there weren't games on TV each and every night, the way, and it wasn't available on these things because they hadn't been invented. So when there was a big game, it truly was a big game. And Dick Enberg was the voice. He was the preeminent voice of it, and we're sorry to have lost him. But we are so thankful that we had him for as long as we did, because it brought so many memories. There's no question about it. So the sports world is hurting because of this. And how about this tweet that the Los Angeles Dodgers were nice enough to put out? And this courtesy of Vince Scully. To me, Dick Enberg was the greatest all-around sportscaster who ever lived, and will never be emulated. He was a very dear friend of mine. He had my respect, admiration, and my friendship. He will be sorely missed. Mr. Scully, nobody could have said it better. Dick Enberg, a legend in the sports broadcasting world, gone at the age of 82.